Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. This will be going over the starts and sits for Week 8, so I'll go through every single game this week, tell you guys which players I think should and shouldn't be in your fantasy football lineups. This will be part 1 of the video. We have no teams on bye this week, so that means we get 16 games. I will cover the first 8 games in this video, and then tomorrow night, after the Thursday Night Football game, I'll record that second set of games, so that way we have one more day of practice, injury reports, and all that. Just it gives me an opportunity to make a little bit more informed decisions for you guys, and also just keeps the video from being like an hour long. So stay tuned for that one there. Should be a lot of fun. We've obviously got a lot of good games this week, a lot of fun storylines. You should be really pretty close to full strength this week. Not a lot of bye weeks. Like I said, 0 bye weeks. So in general, outside of injury, every single player is available to us. So a lot of tough decisions to make. Thanks. You're not just really trying to do whatever you can to get a lineup together. It is like you're actually going to have decisions to make, and I think it'll be a really fun week. So if you guys have any specific start-sit questions, just let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to give you guys my opinion there. And other than that, let's get into it here. Let's start things off with Thursday Night Football. Starting things off with Thursday Night Football here, we've got the Vikings at the Rams. This one could actually be really fun here. For the Vikings side of the ball, Aaron Jones and Justin Jefferson both need to be in lineups here. They're just playing too well. I know Aaron Jones is banged up, but he played last week, played really well. They'll limit him a little bit, but he's one of the best players in this offense. You're playing him for sure. Jordan Addison, really solid start as well. The Rams are not a team that can really defend perimeter wide receivers very well at all, so Jordan Addison should be in line for a pretty solid opportunity here. You're hoping for a big play there, but I still think Addison's a decent start. TJ Hawkinson might play in this one. I'm sort of leaning towards him not being active in this game yet, but if he is active, I still think I'd sit him. I want to see him play and be an integral part of this offense before I trust him. Granted, tight end's really weak, so if you're really bottom of the barrel streaming it, I could see there are worse options than Hawkinson, so you could go there. For the Rams, Kyren Williams, Cooper Kupp, they got to be in your lineup for sure. But other than that, no other Rams I really want to play. It's tough to really look behind Cooper Kupp at guys like Demarcus Robinson, Jordan Whittington, Tyler Johnson had the big game last week. I don't trust any of those guys to be like a reliable target earner to this week, so I don't want to trust that. And then Colby Parkinson's just not been good enough there. So don't want to play him, and I don't want to stream Matthew Stafford either. Fun storylines here too, like Cooper Kupp is very much on the trading block. We could see him get traded after this week. If the Vikings win, it's actually moderately possible that we see Stafford traded to the Vikings, which seems really weird. It's like the Vikings are playing for the opportunity to be able to trade for Matthew Stafford, which is it's a really fun storyline there. We could see a lot of different ways this could go. So fun storyline, should be a fun game, and just good that we hopefully get a good game of football on Thursday compared to what we got last week when we got the Saints and the Broncos playing. Next, we got another pretty fun one here between the Packers and the Jaguars in Jacksonville here, and there really is a potential shootout brewing in this one. We've got a 50-point over-under by Vegas right now, so lots of points expected to be scored in this game. On the Packers side of the ball, Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, and Jaden Reed would all be in my lineups for sure. Romeo Doubs and Tucker Kraft feel like really solid starting options as well. Doubs has been fantastic the last couple of weeks. I think he's a really solid starting option, and Tucker Kraft is actually the tight end 3 on the year. He's an integral part of a really good offense. He's not going to earn 8 targets on a reliable basis, but he is a guy they look to in the red zone. You could do a lot worse than Tucker Kraft, so I think he's a guy that we at least need to look at every single week. For the Jaguars, Brian Thomas, Evan Ingram, they both need to be must-starts for me. Thomas is the wide receiver 6 on the season. He's playing phenomenal football, and he's only going to get better as the season goes on, so you're playing him for sure. And then Evan Ingram, a really integral part of the offense. Just didn't really need to use him a lot last week because they beat the Patriots pretty handily. They didn't need to air it out like you would have wanted them to. So Ingram's going to be involved here. You can definitely start him. Behind them, though, like Tank Bigsby, Travis Etienne, both low-end plays for me at the running back position. I just can't really trust either one of them. I think Bigsby's the better player. They mentioned not wanting to shift over to him. They don't want Etienne to lose his job because he got hurt. So it's just going to be a timeshare. It makes it really gross. I don't want to play either one of them this week. And then Christian Kirk, a flex option if you need him, but I would prefer not to play him if I could avoid it. Next, we got the Cardinals at the Dolphins. Really hoping we can finally see these offenses just play the way they should be playing here. For the Cardinals, James Conner, Trey McBride, they've been good enough. You're playing them every single week right now. I know Trey McBride's been a huge disappointment, but he's still a tight end 5 on the season, which is pretty much right where he got drafted. So it's just a statement in terms of really how bad the tight end position as a whole has been, because you feel disappointed playing Trey McBride every week, and he's still basically returning draft value. So been really rough there, but you're still playing McBride. Kyler Murray, low-end quarterback 1 for me. The Dolphins are, on paper, a really tough matchup for opposing quarterbacks. They've given up the least fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks so far this season. That being said, their offense hasn't put up any points, so teams haven't needed to air it out and score against them. Could be a different story here with Tua back, so I don't want to put too much stock into that there. Marvin Harrison Jr., you're probably starting him, but man, it's been really frustrating. It does have a 26% target share, so I don't want to like bury him here. Like he's still a really good player. He's should be the number one target in this offense. I think Tyler just needs to play better. He was open. Harrison was open on what should have been a 70-yard touchdown. Kyler just missed him trying to move the sticks on third down. He said. So there's obviously upside there. I think you're playing Marvin Harrison, but we really want to start seeing some production here soon because it's been frustrating for myself and anybody else who drafted him. For the Dolphins, Devon Achane, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, you're playing all of them for sure this week to me. Waddle, not necessarily a must start, but it's a really good matchup here against Arizona. And I view Waddle and Hill the same way we viewed them back in week one, where they were like Hill's arguably the wide receiver one right now this week, and then Jalen Waddle's like a mid-tier to low-end wide receiver two, if not better. So you're playing them for sure, probably. Tua, he's a decent streaming option here. The Cardinals defense isn't one that scares us. It's always tough putting a guy back in your lineup like that because, there is the concussion risk here with Tua. But I think I would just play him as like a low-end QB1 as well. Raheem Mostert, Jonnu Smith, both like low-end starting options if you need them. There's no bias this week, like I mentioned earlier, so I'd probably hope you have better options, but I could see why you might need to go there. Jonnu Smith will be involved enough. They'll throw some tight end screens to him, and then Raheem Mostert, you're hoping for a 1-yard rushing touchdown, but he could certainly get that this week. Next, we got the Jets at the Patriots here. A gross game. Two bad teams duking it out. The Jets are playing with their season on the line. If they lose this game, their season's effectively over. But they will win this game. Breece Hall, probably the only guy that I view as like a must-start in this entire game here. Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, both guys you're probably starting, but it just didn't look great last week. Adams only had 6 PPR fantasy points. Garrett Wilson played poorly. So tough to really trust either one of them, especially in a game where the Jets should be winning and probably just be able to lean on their running game. So it's a low floor play, or you're probably playing those guys regardless. Not going to play Aaron Rodgers this week or probably ever unless we see some high-end production for a couple weeks. And I really don't think I want to play a single Patriots player. Ramondre Stevenson feels really bad. It's like a low-end running back too, but the floor is extremely low there. The Jets defense obviously hasn't been fantastic, but like Antonio Gibson will be involved a little bit. Jermichael Hasty played pretty well last week. Ramondre is still clearly not 100%. It's just a bad offense. I think you can play Ramondre, but it just doesn't get me excited at all. If I needed to play a Patriot wide receiver, Mario Douglas would be the play for me. I know last week was just super disappointing, but he was dealing with an illness. Should be back to full health this week. The Jets' pass defense just gave it up to George Pickens. I think Douglas is the best wide receiver on this team, so he'd be the one to look at if you need to. Hunter Henry, decent tight end option. I think you could probably play him here. He's just been really involved, and Drake May does elevate this offense at least a little bit. And then Drake May himself, a desperation streaming option. I don't want to do it this week, but like he's a guy that we at least need to keep our eyes on because he is athletic. He is throwing the ball quite a bit and could be at least a reasonable streaming option going forward. Next up, we got the Ravens at the Browns. For the Ravens, Lamar, Derrick Henry, they're must-starts every single week. Mark Andrews, solid play in this one. Like, he's been really good. You're hoping for a touchdown. So Andrews is like a little fringe tight end one. I mean, he's a top 10 play for me at the tight end position. Not a guy that I'm expecting to go out there and just dominate. But, like, he's involved. You're playing him probably. Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, both low-end options for me this week. Believe it or not, Zay Flowers is the wide receiver 21 of the season. Zay Flowers is the wide receiver 22, so they're a lot closer than you might think. Flowers did leave the game a little bit last week with an ankle injury, so that might have played into why Rashad Bateman got so much more involved. But they're both like low-end plays. This is a game that the Ravens should win pretty handily. The Browns are not going to put up a ton of points on Baltimore, so it won't be a game where the Ravens need to throw the ball a ton. So I'd look for other options if I could this week there. David Njoku for the Browns, really the only Brown that I think we need to start. He's going to get hyper-targeted. He's a great option there. Jameis Winston, a fun but sort of scary streaming option. Like, I don't want to go there, but like if you're playing DFS, it could be fun. The Ravens are a good matchup for opposing quarterbacks, but we know Winston will probably throw a pick or two. Cedric Tillman, if I needed to play a receiver, would be the one that I'd want to go with and just sort of trying to ride that hot hand. But I think I'd want to see it one more week, at least see the usage. Like, I'm not saying I need to see a big fantasy game, but I want to see him get 6+ targets this week, run 80% of the routes. See him just be like the wide receiver one on this team again before I start playing him. But if you need to chase that, you can. And then Nick Chubb, I didn't list him here. I don't want to play him this week. Just didn't look involved enough last week. I need to see him ramp up before I trust him in my lineup. Next up, we got a really fun one here. We got the Eagles at the Bengals. Really hoping we get a shootout in this game. It should be a lot of fun watching this one. For the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith. All of them are must-starts. You can't imagine sitting any of them. Maybe you're super stacked at wide receiver and you can consider benching Devonta Smith. But even then, I think Devonta Smith is the guy that I want in my lineup in this matchup. Nobody else, though, for the Eagles. Even if Dallas Goedert's active, it's a little iffy. You could go there because tight end sucks, obviously, but he's like a low-end tight end one option for me. For the Bengals, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, all of them are must-starts this week. The Eagles are not a defense that scares us. And really the only question to me in this game is going to be Chase Brown. I view him as like a low-end RB2 option. I would prefer to sit him. I've got one league. He'd be my running back 4 in that league. I am playing Romeo Doubs in him over him in my flex, so if that gives you any sort of context there, just keep that in mind. But I do think he's a decent play. Just I'm pretty high on Romeo Doubs there, so it's a more of a indictment in terms of how much I like Romeo Doubs this week than anything of like negative towards Chase Brown there. Next up, we got the Colts at the Texans. For the Colts, Anthony Richardson is a super risky starting option. I can't really imagine having the stones to do it, but in one of my leagues, I have an opponent that is streaming him against me, and it is terrifying. Obviously, the floor is near zero. He's been horrendous so far, but it is a good matchup for him. So if you're like a super big underdog in your matchup, I could see yourself considering someone like Anthony Richardson as a guy who will give you upside. So if you need to play him, he's there. Jonathan Taylor, he'd be back in my lineups for sure, assuming he's active, and I wouldn't want to start any Colts wide receivers. Like, maybe Anthony Richardson connects on a deep ball at some point here. I can't tell you if it's going to be Alec Pierce or Adonai Mitchell. Michael Pittman's still out there. Josh Downs seems like he's their best receiver, and it's just there's not enough volume going around for me to trust any of that. So for me, it would be Jonathan Taylor, and then if you're really desperate, you could play Richardson. If I had to play a wide receiver, it would be Josh Downs, but I really don't like any of that. For the Texans, Joe Mixon, he's a must start. You're playing him every single week. The passing game really does set up well here. The Colts are a favorable matchup. So I think Stroud is like a top 10 quarterback. I'd be playing CJ Stroud this week. And then Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, solid starting options. Again, it's risky. They haven't been great so far this season outside of Stephon Diggs scoring a few touchdowns. But the talent is there. I think I'd still play them. Dell is like a high-end flex option for me, and Diggs is like a solid wide receiver 3. But again, you don't have to go there. I could imagine there are teams out there that have better options and don't need to play those guys. And the last game we'll talk about today here is going to be the Titans at the Lions. For the Titans, Ridley really isn't the worst play in the world. We got notice this morning that they traded DeAndre Hopkins over to the Chiefs, so Ridley is effectively the only guy they can consider throwing the ball to on a regular basis in Tennessee. It's a good matchup here against Detroit. Mason Rudolph should still be starting, I believe, which does to me at least give me a little bit more confidence in terms of the passing game here. So, and they'll be trailing in this game, so you could play Ridley. He's going to get a lot of targets. He had 9 last week and 8 the week before. I know it's turned into no fantasy production at all, but the volume is there. If you want to flex Calvin Ridley, I think you can do that. Tony Pollard, he's a volume play at the running back position. Not one that gets me super excited because I don't think this is a game you'll be able to run the ball very effectively on them against, but Pollard could catch a few passes. Keep an eye on Tajay Spears. I think he's going to play this week, which makes it a little bit riskier, but Pollard's still been a workhorse, so you're playing him as like a low-end running back too, but just this doesn't feel like a week where Pollard's going to go out there and be the reason you win. For the Lions, Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown, they're both must-starts. There's no way you're sitting either one of those guys. I would start David Montgomery even if he's active, or assuming he's active, but I would bet he's a little bit limited this week coming off that injury. Should be again the Lions win pretty handily, so why would they force feed Monty in a game that they don't need to? So I just keep that in mind, but Monty's still a solid running back 2 option. It kind of feels like Sam Laporta should eat. The Titans are not a very good passing defense outside of L'Jarius Sneed taking away opposing number 1s. So Laporta should be open up in the middle of the field quite a bit, especially with Jameson Williams suspended for a couple weeks. Should give more targets to Laporta. So I think he's like a low-end tight end 1. I know he's been awful so far, but it's tough to just completely fade him there. I think he's a decent option there. And then Jared Goff, decent streaming option this week, sort of like he always is, but they're at home. That's great. The Titans aren't a defense that scares me. The only issue is they'll be winning so much they might just be able to lean on the run. But without Monty being at full strength, maybe you get more passing volume anyway. So I think Jared Goff's like a fringe top 12 guy this week. That'll do it for the starts and sits part 1 this week. Up next, I'll go over the final 8 games of the week, give you guys my starts and sits for those games, so stay tuned for that video. That will come out about 24 hours from now. Other than that, though, if you guys do have any specific questions, like I said earlier, just let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to give you guys my opinion on those. If you guys want some help Sunday morning, please stop by for the live stream. It's 1 hour before the morning games kick off, so at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time, I'll go live. I'll cover the latest injury updates, answer any start-sit questions you guys have live there, and get you guys ready to go for Week 8. So should be a lot of fun. If you guys haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel that we don't miss any of the future content. And if you made it this far in the video, please give it a thumbs up. It just helps me out quite a bit. Appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you with the next one. Peace. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.